Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Wampus Cats podcast. I'm with my co-host,
Carson Keene. I'm with my co-host,
Grayson. Now, I think we're going to go over to TSA today. What do you think, Carson?
That's
All
why
right.
we have our guest on today, Mr. Swift.
Yeah. So, Mr. Swift, how you feeling today?
Doing pretty good.
All right. Is there anything you want the student body to know about TSA before we go into our questions?
Sure. Main thing is TSA, it's one of the youngest organizations on campus. We have a lot of goals. We're also a career tech organization. So one of the things that does is that gives us access to career tech funds to provide some opportunities to students here that the high school can't necessarily afford to provide. A lot of people, when they think TSA, they think of our robotics contests, which are always fun. But we also have a lot of other contests. We have a lot of artists in the group. We've got contests from children's stories to animatronics. And we have speech contests, kind of similar to what FFA has.
All right. What necessarily are your, technological related contests that we're doing this year?
So this year's a big year. We've got 32 kids signed up for contests.
Oh, wow.
That's an all-time record, isn't it?
It is. When we first started, we had 4. So it's really grown. It's a good problem to have. Some of the contests the kids are trying this year, I've not actually participated or coached, so I get to learn those with the students this year. Sometimes that's the most fun there is. We've got video game design, robotics, animatronics, children's stories, manufacturing, prototypes. I'm sure I'm forgetting some. I think somebody's doing prepared presentation. There's several. I'm sure I'm forgetting some.
I heard we're going into a new form of robotics this year. Is that true?
Yes, in the past we've done BEST, and BEST was a good starting point for us. But we're going to try something just a little bit more complex this year. We're going to do some open source robotics. So instead of it being modular kits, the kids are going to have to be completely innovative. They're going to have to decide what to order and how to put everything together. And there's no guides out there at all for what we're fixing to try to do this year. It'll be completely original.
All right.
What exactly does TSA do for the school?
Well, for one, like I said before, it provides us with some access to some funds. But more specifically, I guess I should mention the national TSA goal is to provide meaningful, rigorous technology education to all students. The state has the same goal, except for the state of Oklahoma. And then Atoka here, we actually have our own goal here. Our goal is to provide meaningful technology education opportunities to Atoka students and to advocate for technology education to all rural students in Oklahoma.
Right.
Our students, our first officers, wanted to add a little bit to our goals here. Southeast Oklahoma is kind of a small area, and some of these students that were the officers of that year, they had friends at Colgate and Durant and some of the other schools, and they wanted to be an outreach for the entire Southeast Oklahoma, and they wanted to set an example for those schools of what this can look like.
Okay. So, how can TSA help the student body or just individual students scholarship-wise?
Sure. Well, TSA's got several scholarships. We've been very fortunate. We had a student win a national TSA scholarship last year. They only give out 3 of those across the country, so that was huge. There's also a state TSA scholarship. We've had a young lady get that a few years ago.
That was Abby Rowland, right?
Yes. And then last year, John Williams was the national TSA recipient.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, it was a surprise over the summer. They didn't announce till July. It was a great surprise for him. He was, fixing to start college and found out he got a little bit more money. It's a good problem. But on top of that, there's some other scholarships in our area. We have a lot of foundations in the area, like the Carolyn Watson Grant. They provide a lot of money to schools for STEM. But there's also some scholarships in the area for STEM students. One is the Raglan Foundation. They give out $10,000 to students. And I've had several students get that scholarship. And that one's straight for STEM. Good opportunities from that. Beyond just scholarships, though, some of my kids get internships and things, too. So last year, Chance Kruger was our president, and he actually did an internship for an organization called OMRF, and he got to participate in some cancer research. And he hasn't even started college yet. That's a huge advantage. Very nice on his resume. A lot of experience in the lab. He learned a lot about analyzing DNA. Honestly, I was talking to him the other day, and some of the stuff he was talking about, I don't even understand. It's really great. I've had some students also intern for OSU, and we had a student do a NASA internship one year. Dre Davidson had an internship with NASA.
Oh, really?
So it just gives a lot of opportunities that you might not realize are available in Southeast Oklahoma. Southeast Oklahoma is going to be a tech hub, I'm telling you. Between all the drone upgrades that are happening, the Choctaw Nation, what the state of Oklahoma is doing, the Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission, it's a really good time if you're a student that's interested in STEM. There's a good likelihood there's going to be a spike in jobs in our area for that, especially as our military is looking for ways to produce things like drones and technology other than China. There's a cybersecurity risk with us buying everything from China, and everybody pretty much knows the answer to that is to make it here in America. And Southeast Oklahoma and northern Texas, we're going to be a target for that.
Now, backwards onto the contests that you were speaking about earlier, is there any contests you want to go specifically into for the student body so they can get to know what they're going to possibly be able to do in a few years?
Sure. If you don't mind, I'd like to mention at least two.
Go ahead.
The first one is kind of our flagship, animatronics. This is one we're known for. If you go to other TSA schools and you mention Atoka, animatronics is synonymous with it. We're known for our animatronics. We've placed 8th at the International TSA Conference 2 years ago. We have had 2 first-place trophies and a second-place state trophy in that category. And we've only competed in that for 3 years. In all 3 years, we've done well. The worst we've done is second at state, which is amazing.
Now, to interject before your other contest, what exactly was the winner from last year for the animatronics contest?
Like what really pushed it over?
Yeah.
So animatronics, let me go ahead and say what it is. It's basically you take robotics, and a lot of times you use stuffed animals or things like that, and you bring them to life. And you want them interesting, entertaining. Sometimes they're educational. There's a lot of different ways you can use animatronics. The way most people have seen animatronics is either in a parade or maybe the dinosaurs at the zoo moving around. Disney's huge on animatronics. There are animatronics engineers at Disney that make 6-figure salaries. It's kind of fun. It's a fun job. But what really set us apart last year is our program is very clean. Not a lot of bugs in it. It runs really clean. There's not a lot of jerkiness to the motions of our systems. The other thing, it's the little things, the fine details, wire management, just making sure that when you open this thing up and they look at the wiring and the programming, it looks professional. And that's part of what TSA is about, is making you a professional. So our TSA students, they can go on to college and they can do great things. And we've had students do that. But we've also had students that didn't go to college and also earn some great opportunities. You can make $75,000 a year right here in Southeast Oklahoma with some of the skills we teach, such as a junior programming position. And you can Google those. There's over 1,000 openings right now.
The student by the name of Pacer, right?
Pacer Pingleton, yes, and he found a whole nother route. He got into the nuclear propulsion program for the Navy. Most people in that program have a degree in physics or engineering. He tested in, and he tested well. Super proud of him.
He hasn't even gone to college yet, right?
No, but he'll get that paid for. Now, through that academy he's going to, he'll get college credits. It's like college. He'll be an officer of some sort. I don't really know the full system of that, but I do know he got a very nice sign-on bonus. And those nuclear propulsion folks, they're some of the highest paid military people without going through the academy and hitting high levels. He really found himself a great opportunity. And we've got other students here that are of that caliber. It's a great option. And I think it's worth mentioning, too, I think it's great that he enlisted, but there's also some opportunities for students that don't want to enlist. You can actually work with the military as a civilian. You can actually go. There's websites you can look up. Like the Air Force one is Air Force Civilian Services, AFCS. You can go on there and look at the jobs. They're hiring everything from a police officer to a janitor and everything in between, programmers, all sorts of things. There's a lot of TSA-related jobs listed there. And a lot of those positions, they pay on something called a GS scale. It's a government pay scale. But a lot of those positions pay over $60,000 a year right here in Oklahoma. And that's a comfortable salary here, especially if you don't have college debt.
All right.
What future do you see for TSA and technology in general?
Well, TSA itself has actually been around for a while. It used to be called IASA, and it actually came out of the Perkins program. So the Perkins program was started for agriculture. So FFA is also a Perkins organization, as well as BPA and FCCLA and HOSA. There's a few others. I think there's 8 in total. But TSA specifically, TSA really moved forward when Sputnik was launched. So there's a history with TSA and the U.S. government. And the idea is that if we're going to compete with Russia, and today China, we have to produce technology students. We have to stay competitive on that global scale. And regular high school diplomas don't do that. We have to teach these skills. So TSA going into the future, it's shifting a little bit. Originally, when it first started, a lot of it was inventions, and robotics was always a part of it. There's something called breadboarding, which is like making circuits. That's always been big in TSA. But we're starting to see more art. Through the 80s and 90s, they started adding more and more art programs. We have a lot of students interested in that. There's a lot of companies that like branding, and they hire those students to brand their companies for them. It's very important. There's some logos that you guys have seen. If a good logo, you remember it. There's just certain logos that stick out to you, and there's money to be made on that. Now, more recently, we're seeing a lot of growth in cybersecurity. And personally, I think, and I hate to say this, but we one day may have a World War III. I sure hope I don't see that. But if we do, I think a lot of people can feel it just in their bones. Technology is going to be a key part of that. We have to have a cybersecurity network to prevent tech issues from other countries.
All right. Okay, then. Now, how about we move on to an entertainment topic?
Sure. Sounds fun.
So, our entertainment topic for today's episode is going to be conspiracy theories. And do you know what cryptids are?
No, it sounds familiar.
Okay, have you heard of Mothman?
Yes. One of my students uses that as an avatar.
Great term, and I know, trust me. I know. Then Bigfoot, basically any like supernatural creatures.
Loch Ness
are,
Monster,
that's a cryptid.
aliens. Okay.
Animals basically that are said to exist.
But nobody's actually ever seen them
Okay.
like walk around or do anything. Now, which one do you want to go over first? Conspiracy theories or cryptids?
Let's start with cryptids.
Okay. What cryptid do you think would interest you to talk about most today?
Well, I think a big one that a lot of people find interesting, just because, for one, its size, its relevance, and it's mentioned in several different religious documents and things, is Leviathan.
That is the 1,000-meter, however big it is, sea creature, right?
Yeah.
What do you think Leviathan really is? Like, what do you think people have like mistaken it for?
Well, there's some strong evidence that some tribes and things have tried to explain tsunamis and earthquakes from the ocean, and maybe that ties into it. There's also there's a fish called an oarfish. I don't know if you've ever seen one
I
of
know
those.
what you're talking about. Yeah, I actually do.
They're very long, and so
They're
some
weird
people,
looking.
Yeah, they are. They're also incredibly rare. They're deep sea creatures for the most part.
They're in the abyss zone, aren't they?
Yes, but they can come to the surface. So they're not seen very often, and we kind of wonder if maybe that has played into it. But there's other things to be curious about. When I was in high school, I was told that giant squid and colossal squid were myths,
Here we are now.
and we've caught them. They exist. The
Now-
ocean is a big place.
Yeah.
You went really well with the ocean topic because I was wanting to talk about the blip. Do you know what that is?
What's that?
Okay, so Carson, do you know about the blip?
I think so. It's like the noise we heard in, I want to say the 60s or 80s.
Was it the 60s? I thought it was like in the early 2000s.
Or it might have been that then. I don't remember.
Well,
I thought it was
However,
older.
it was like quite a few years ago. I know it's years, but there was like a weird noise detection in the ocean, and scientists think it's a giant creature. Some scientists think it's just a submarine or some weird thing. But with your Leviathan talk, that's also really brings up a good point with that conspiracy theory. So
My biggest theory on what that is that it was a glacier, because that's what I've heard the most is a glacier breaking in half or into a few pieces.
I honestly think it's just a rogue sonar ping from a submarine or
Yeah, it
something.
could have also been that.
Because if it was in the late 60s, then that's Soviet era. So
Yeah.
Well, and when you're talking about the ocean too, you get a lot of waves. So here's a wild thought. It could be something called a harmonic, and it might have just built up and hit our sensors. So Tesla at one time, Nikola Tesla, he thought that you could destroy a bridge with harmonic motion. He did a lot of experiments on it. He never was able to do that.
that's like the wavy motion, right?
Yeah, but it
Okay.
turns out every object, depending on what it's made out of, they have different harmonic frequencies. And if you can match those frequencies, you can make things like shake apart. For example, the Tacoma Bridge disaster. I don't know if y'all have seen that. There was a bridge they built, and it just started to wave one day, and it literally just shook to pieces. And what happened was the wind going underneath it went just the right speed at just the right frequency. It matched the harmonic frequency of the bridge, and it destroyed the whole bridge. Did millions of dollars worth of damage.
Wow.
So
I've
there's a
seen
lot
that
of
video.
things. It's weird. A lot of things can happen.
I've seen a video of that happening to a bridge, but I don't know if it was that bridge. It had a bunch of like steel cables on it.
Yeah, probably was. It's a famous incident. The video that I
Have you heard
seen,
about that, Carson?
I have not known.
I seen a video. There was an old man. He was running out on that bridge while it was doing that because he left his dog in the car.
Oh.
So that, anyways, it scared people. Nobody actually got hurt or died in that, as far as I know. I think the bridge started to be funny, and pretty much everybody just evacuated. But when it comes to sounds and things like that, man, they can be a big mystery. They really can. Without more information, it's really hard to pin something like that down. And in the 60s, their technology was pretty basic. I mean, we put a man on the moon, but
Did you
Yeah.
see how many flaws were in that rocket?
yeah, there's a ton of flaws. And the other thing is, back then calculators weren't even computers. There were a bunch of women in a back room, and they took them a bunch of math to do. Well, there was a couple guys, but a lot of them they're called NASA calculators. There was a movie recently about that. But the 60s was a time they did a lot of interesting things, but they didn't have the tech we do. It shows a lot of improvisation and
But they didn't
thought
have as many
process.
errors as we do now. I mean, have you seen how many rockets blow up on YouTube?
Yeah. Have you seen how many games are produced in the day they come out? They're bugged. When I was a kid, the game had to be done when it was put on the cartridge. There was no patch. You couldn't cut corners like that. You can now.
Now, there's this other conspiracy theory about space. Do you know what the heliosphere is? It's okay. So we have our solar system. The heliosphere is like, think of it as like a globe around the solar system that the sun produces heat and protects us from interstellar radiation.
Okay.
People suspect that all the stars and planets we see are just optical illusions, and that we are the only solar system. What do you think about that?
I think it's unlikely that we're the only solar system because there's a lot of things you could look at, but it's kind of like the old argument with flat Earth. You have to look at different observations. And one thing that I'd like to point out that doesn't really support that is our sun is moving. We know the sun is moving, and it's orbiting. And best we can tell, it's actually orbiting around a black hole outside of our solar system. Now, the
like-
bad news is,
S875 or something like that.
yeah, the bad news is one of these days we'll go in that black hole. It'll be long after I'm gone.
After all of us are gone.
Yes, but it's kind of interesting. Heisenberg had an uncertainty principle. He basically said if you knew how fast you were going, you didn't know where you could know where you're at if you don't know how fast you're going. Okay, so basically what he said was, I'm sitting here, I'm not moving. So right now I think I'm not moving, but the Earth is in fact spinning, right? And the Earth is moving. So I'm actually going those speeds. But then the Earth is also moving around the sun. So I have to add that speed. And then if the sun is moving around something else, I have to add that speed. So the question is, do I ever know how fast I'm even going? If I don't know how fast I'm going, how would I ever know where I'm at or where I'm going? It's a weird thing with the universe. We're very small. And the fact is there's a lot of things out there that we have no control over. And It's exciting, but actually kind of scary at the same time if you look into some of those things. But Heisenberg's uncertainty principle was a breakthrough for physics. It really explains some of our quantum mechanics. Something that I think is really interesting that you can look into is how quantum computing works. I don't have time to explain that whole thing, but I want to tell you what fascinates me about it. You have 3 states, and 2 of the states of the electrons are based on if you're observing it or not. They can act as a particle or a wave. And it almost seems like the universe knows when we're watching it. And that's an interesting thing, to even think that the universe may have a consciousness. But who knows? I don't know.
All right, so do you think that's all we have time for this episode, Carson?
Yeah, I mean, we have only 1 minute of class left, so.
All right, so I say we thank Mr. Swift for coming on today, and till next time, see you guys sometime soon, I guess. Bye.